Test one, test one.
The Subcommittee on Communications and Technology will now come to order. And I recognize myself for 5 minutes for an opening statement. I do want to welcome each of you and say good morning, because it is a good morning here in DC, and welcome you to our hearing, The Future of Emergency Alerting, and to think about how important this topic is. One data point that we should each celebrate is that the first abducted child to be rescued by an Amber Alert in 1998 is about to graduate from high school. And in that thought, we extend our congratulations to Miss Ray Lynn Bradbury of Fort Worth, Texas, who was that first child who was rescued by an Amber Alert. I do want to thank our witnesses that are here today. This committee's commitment to advancing public safety communications is well established. Recently, FirstNet announced the award of a contract to AT&T that will bring state-of-the-art, interoperable broadband communications to our nation's first responders. The legislation that got us there reflects the bipartisan work of this committee under Chairman Walden's leadership, and we thank him for that leadership. The committee examined next-gen 911 services and listened to testimony regarding the challenges and benefits of bringing the robust capabilities of IP-based technology to our nation's public safety answering points. This morning, we have an opportunity to hear about a third critical component of public safety communications, which is emergency alerting. Outfitting first responders with capabilities of broadband communications is essential. In those times when catastrophe looms and the lives of hundreds, thousands, or maybe even millions are at risk or a child is missing, the necessity of ensuring the best available tools are available to local, state, and federal authorities to alert the public cannot be understated. We all know the stories from tornadoes that are ripping through communities, hurricanes that devastate the coast, earthquakes, even acts of terrorism. They weigh heavily on our collective consciousness of just how dangerous the world can be. Where do we find comfort? With the knowledge that those that have dedicated their lives to protecting ours are able to notify us and steer us from harm's way. How do they go about doing this? This morning we will hear about the Emergency Alert System, EAS, a broadcast-based mechanism that has been around for decades and serves as the nation's primary alerting tool. Recently, FEMA and its partners performed a nationwide test, the second in history. We will hear about the outcome and the lessons learned. We will be introduced to a new television broadcast transmission standard, ATSC 3.0, that the broadcast television industry has sought authorization from the FCC to deploy. Among other things, it appears to offer capabilities that could bring significant improvements to emergency alerting. I'd like to understand what those are and the impact it will have on EAS. We will hear about wireless emergency alerts, the mechanism that brings us alerts through our mobile devices. Mr. Shimkus was the lead sponsor of the WARN Act, the legislation that established that mechanism in 2006, and we thank him for that leadership. Since then, we have come to increasingly rely on our smartphones. Today, we will hear how continued technological innovation promises to make WIA a more significant component of alerting. Finally, we're going to explore the role of social media. We have seen firsthand the power of Twitter and Facebook, as well as others in this space. Yet, while social media has been used as a tool by public safety, there are concerns regarding such things as trustworthiness and security. Having the most effective means to reach our citizens in times of emergency is a goal we all share. Today's panel will inform us on what is and what might be as the nation's alerting capabilities evolve. I now recognize the subcommittee ranking member, Mr. Doyle, for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the witnesses for being here today. I believe emergency alerts are a critical issue for our country and our constituents, and I look forward to the hearing today. Advances in emergency alerts have enabled greater flexibility, targeting, and effectiveness. And I'm proud of the legislation that was passed out of this committee and has been adopted by industry and consumers alike. Wireless alerts provide detailed and timely messages to the devices that we carry and keep close to us every moment of the day. Additionally, I'm happy to see a representative from the broadcasters here. The commitment that broadcasters have had to emergency alerts and local reporting times of emergency is commendable. For far too long, this has been the only way that people have been able to get information about emergencies events in their regions. I'll be interested to hear about the impact the new proposed television standard could have on broadcast alerts. That being said, I still have concerns about this proposed transition to a new broadcast standard and the impact it could have on working families and seniors. The last time we changed broadcast standards, Congress, the FCC, and the Department of Commerce partnered with industry to inform people and ensure that citizens were not left behind by a change in technology. As we embark on this next transition, it is critical that we work together to do the same thing. That being said, I'm concerned about the timing of this hearing. The FCC, at its open meeting tomorrow, will vote to advance an order that will roll back essential rules that protect and promote a free and open internet. There are already 1.6 million comments on the record. This committee has yet to hold a public hearing at this Congress to address the proposed changes, nor has this committee held an oversight hearing of the FCC itself, one of the primary agencies this subcommittee is charged with overseeing. This issue is one of many that this subcommittee should be discussing with the Commission. Since the Commission is made up of unelected appointees, as the majority repeatedly pointed out over the last 8 years, it is critical that they be held accountable by Congress. Last Congress, this subcommittee had no trouble bringing the FCC up here to testify, with some commissioners joking that they should receive frequent flyer miles for the frequency of their visits. Now, with the Commission on the brink of considering an enormously unpopular and ill-advised proposal that could have far-reaching implications on the most innovative part of our economy, it seems irresponsible not for Congress to provide the much-needed oversight. Ranking Member Pallone and I have recently sent a letter to the Commission requesting that they extend the comment period for open internet NPRM. I'm concerned that denying citizens and stakeholders sufficient opportunity to comment on this proceeding will only prevent the Commission from seeing how deeply unpopular and ill-advised this course of action is. Additionally, along with my colleagues Anna Eshoo and Doris Matsui, we recently sent a letter requesting a hearing on the proposed Sinclair Tribune merger. This merger, coupled with the FCC's recent action to reinstate the UHF discount, has the potential to enormously increase consolidation of media ownership in this country. It is my hope that the majority and Chairman Blackburn will work with us to schedule a hearing to address the issues surrounding this proposed merger. Madam Chair, I'd like to ask unanimous consent that a letter from the American Cable Association be placed in the record.
So ordered.
Thank you, and with that, I'll yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. At this time, I recognize the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Walden, for 5 minutes.
I thank the chairman for her leadership on these and other issues involving communications. I want to strike out a little personal privilege here to recognize and commend our longtime counsel on the subcommittee, Mr. David Rettel. The announcement that the administration intends to appoint him to head up the NTIA. That announcement came out last night. He's been an incredibly valuable part of our efforts on communication law, and I think we owe him a round of applause for his new endeavor. And he's not here. Appropriately, he's hiding out in the back, I think. So, but David's done a terrific job, so thank you, David. I think I can say without a doubt I'm the only chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee that's ever actually wired in an emergency alert system, having been a radio station owner and operator and faux engineer from time to time. I'm very familiar with EAS. and its predecessor, the EBS, and the importance of the work that's been done over the years to provide emergency communication to our citizens. And I want to commend Mr. Shimkus, who has gone up to the other hearing, I believe, for his work in transitioning America's laws over into the wireless world as well, where we communicate. Actually, radio was the original wireless world. Today, we're going to look at all of this and look forward. As you know, our work in a bipartisan way, Ms. Eshoo and I, moving forward on the spectrum auction that allowed the facilitation of the creation of FirstNet, which also funded it when the auction was successful. As we move forward, we want to make sure that our first responder community and the citizens that they serve and protect have access to the latest technologies, and that that's an evolving course, not something that's just simply locked in. We've come a long way since the 1950s with EBS, and now we're into this new age. And we need to make sure that federal policy doesn't inhibit technological advancement, and we need to make sure that we're providing the help that our first responders need, and that the broadcasters use, and cablecasters and others, when it comes to making sure that people are notified. So I look forward to your testimony today. I thank the chairman for her leadership on this subcommittee, and with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Would anyone like the balance of Mr. Walden's time? No one seeking that time. I recognize Mr. Pallone for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And I also want to thank you and our ranking member, Mr. Doyle, for having this important hearing today. But before I turn to the matter of the hearing, I wanted to quickly address FCC's efforts to strip away consumers' net neutrality protections at tomorrow's FCC meeting. FCC Chairman Pai has proposed a plan that would kill net neutrality, and the chairman's proposal will have a chilling influence on our democracy, cut away at our connections with each other, and limit economic opportunities for the future. It's no wonder that more than 1 million comments have already been submitted, and I would urge the Commission to listen to the American people and reconsider this misguided approach. Now, getting back to today's hearing, President Truman created our nation's first emergency alert system in 1951, in part to ensure Americans would be prepared in the event of a nuclear strike. It's hard to overstate the importance of emergency alerts, whether it's preparing us for the impending landfall of a devastating hurricane, telling us to seek shelter from a tornado, or letting us know there's an active shooter nearby. Getting up to the minute information saves lives. And the need for alerts, unfortunately, is now greater as we face the sobering realities of climate change and as mass shootings appear more frequent than ever. The people in my district know this too well. The emergency alerts that were sent out ahead of Superstorm Sandy was one important way officials helped people along the New Jersey shore evacuate and prepare. Going above and beyond just passing along alerts, one radio station called The Rat stayed on air during the storm to help reunite families and get people to safety. Alerts also helped to get the word out last year when a bomb was detonated in Seaside Park, New Jersey, and several more bombs were found at a train station in Elizabeth. Authorities in New York and New Jersey used mobile alerts to enlist the public's help to find the suspect. Now, with the advent of new technologies, Americans deserve better, more detailed information to help keep them safe wherever they are when disaster strikes. But new technologies won't save lives if they aren't useful and available to everyone. We need to ensure existing systems are free from interference, and we must test and evaluate these systems to make sure that they can get the job done. Unfortunately, that's not something we've always been good at. As I mentioned, the first nationwide alerting system was created in 1951, but we didn't test the nationwide system until 2011, 60 years later. The results of that test were abysmal, and entire states didn't even receive the test alerts. Today, we're here to learn about the status and future of public safety and what's being done in the name of saving more American lives. When it comes to public safety, we always must ask ourselves how many lives we're saving, not how many products companies are selling. And with that, I'd like to yield the rest of my time to Ms. Matsui.
Thank you very much, Ranking Member Pallone, for yielding me time. Public safety is our first and foremost responsibility to the American public. As technology advances, we should use these innovations to improve emergency communications to our constituents. I'm glad that the subcommittee is focusing on these important issues, but I also believe there are many other pressing issues that deserve our subcommittee's immediate attention. Tomorrow, the FCC is set to vote to begin the process of rolling back the net neutrality rules, which is a real threat to the free and open internet. Yesterday, I joined my colleagues, Representative Doyle and Eshoo, to ask for a hearing on the proposed Sinclair Tribune merger, which could have damaging consequences for local newsrooms. It is our responsibility to conduct oversight of these major regulatory decisions and changes in the marketplace. I urge my Republican colleagues to work with us to do so. And I yield more time here.
Yes, I'll yield the minute that's left to Mr. McNerney.
Well, thank you. I also want to express my deep concerns about the FCC Chairman Pai's proposal to undo the net neutrality rules. Strong net neutrality rules are vital to the more than 31,000 small businesses in my district. Abandoning these rules will make it much harder for a small business owner to get his or her business off the ground and successfully compete in the marketplace. Additionally, I'm concerned about the short public comment period. It's critical that this period be extended so that all parties, including small businesses, have sufficient time to participate in the process and express their views. It's my opinion that reducing the net neutrality rules will continue to harm the economy. So we need to make sure that those rules are enforced, that they're in place, and that small businesses have a chance to take an opportunity of the vital internet services that really have created so much economy in our country in the last decade or two. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. This concludes member opening statements, and I will remind everyone that pursuant to the committee rules, all members' opening statements will be made a part of the record. We want to thank our witnesses for being here today and for submitting your testimony in a timely manner. That allows us to prepare, and we will look forward to hearing from you with your opening statements and then following with our questions. Our witness panel for today's hearing includes Mr. Sam Matheny, who is the Chief Technology Officer for National Association of Broadcasters, Dr. Farouk Khatibi, who is the Director of Engineering at Qualcomm Technology, and Mr. Christopher Gutman McCabe, who is the Chief Executive Officer for CGM Advisors. Chris is testifying on behalf of the Advanced Computer and Communications Company. We appreciate that you are all here, and we will begin with you, Mr. Matheny, for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman Blackburn and Ranking Member Doyle, for inviting me here, as well as all of the members of the subcommittee. My name is Sam Matheny, and I am the Chief Technology Officer at the National Association of Broadcasters. I appreciate this opportunity to testify today on the unique and important role that local broadcasters play as first informers during times of emergency, and how the innovations of NextGen TV will enhance that ability. I bring an on-the-ground perspective to this issue from my nearly 20 years of experience with Capital Broadcasting Company, parent to WRAL-TV in Raleigh, North Carolina. Like WRAL, all NAB members, the thousands of free, local radio and television broadcasters in your hometowns, take seriously their role as the most trusted source of news and emergency updates. Whether it's preparing listeners and viewers for the coming storm, directing them to needed supplies and shelter during the disaster, or helping towns and cities rebuild in the aftermath, local stations are part of the communities they serve. And local radio and TV stations are sometimes the only available communication mediums in an emergency when cell phones and wireless networks fail. In fact, a new poll was released today by Morning Consult, reaffirming that broadcasters are the #1 medium that the American people turn to in times of emergency, by a factor of nearly 4 to 1. This unique combination of trust and reliability is why, in addition to our ongoing comprehensive news coverage of emergencies, broadcasters form the backbone of the Emergency Alert System, EAS. EAS connects over-the-air broadcast radio, television, and cable systems to communicate critical safety information to the public during sudden, unpredictable, or unforeseen events. These capabilities can be enhanced by a station's voluntary upgrade to NextGen TV, which will enable significant life-saving advances in emergency communications. One need look no further than the recent tragic fire in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, or the destruction caused by Hurricane Sandy to appreciate the vital role of a reliable communications infrastructure in a time of crisis. I'd now like to share some of the capabilities of NextGen TV through a video demonstration. If we could play the video, please. So what you're going to see here when the video begins playing is you're watching a basketball game, and an emergency alert, an advanced emergency alert, is going to appear. And rather than seeing the normal text that you would see scrolling, what you have here is an ammonia gas leak and a hazmat alert. But you also see a menu of items that are available under that alert notice. And so the user has access to a lot more information. In this case, we're actually presenting a map of the area that is impacted by the ammonia gas leak, so you can visually see what's there, as well as a list of the neighborhoods in that community that are impacted. From that, you can also see that to the right, a video on demand file started playing. So instead of the basketball game, you are now watching a piece of content that was downloaded in the background that is specific to the emergency that is taking place, where you can get really detailed information. As we go to shelter in place, which is what the recommendation for is in this emergency, you see what it means to shelter in place, specific instructions on what you should do in terms of staying inside, in terms of turning off your ventilation systems and protecting yourself. But if you do feel impacted, you might need first aid, and this is what it tells you what you need to do. In this case, the advice is to seek immediate medical attention. So therefore, you also have hospital information as well as wait times. So all of this is being included in this single advanced emergency alert, as well as the additional information you see here on numbers where you can call to get assistance. Now, had this been an Amber Alert, you might see the picture of the missing child, you might see a picture of the suspect, or a map of where they were last seen. So there's a great deal of information that can be presented in an advanced emergency alert using NextGen TV. The next step in making these improvements a reality is FCC approval of the petition that NAB jointly filed with America's Public Television Stations, the Consumer Technology Association, and the Advanced Warning and Response Network Alliance. Before I conclude, I want to mention one important item within the oversight jurisdiction of this subcommittee, the recently completed broadcast incentive auction. The FCC has begun the process of relocating or repacking the nearly 1,000 broadcast television stations. Put simply, the $1.75 billion repack budget and 39-month timeline are likely insufficient for such a massive endeavor, and congressional action is needed. Thank you again for inviting me here today. I look forward to answering any questions.
Gentleman yields back. Dr. Khatibi, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Blackburn and Ranking Member Doyle, thank you for affording Qualcomm the opportunity to participate in today's hearing. Qualcomm is a licensor of highly innovative wireless technology and manufacturer of cutting-edge chips of wireless devices. My name is Farouk Khatibi, Director of Engineering at Qualcomm. I have been actively involved in the development of wireless emergency alert VIA standard since early 2007. Recently, I was the co-lead of CISRIC 5 Working Group 2 on emergency alerting platform, where we completed 3 reports on video security, social media and complementary alerting methods, and wireless emergency alert and geotargeting. By the way of background, VIA grew out of the Warning Alert and Response Network, WARN Act, which became law as Title VI of Safe Ports Act in 2006. Taking advantage of the ubiquity of the mobile platform, Congress put in place a framework for wireless carriers to provide a voluntary public safety alerting system utilizing current wireless network technology. That system allows individuals to receive geo-targeted text-like messages alerting them of imminent threat to safety in their area. The alert can be originated from local, state, or federal agencies. The VIA system represents a successful partnership of public and private entities. Since its launch in 2012, VIA has benefited American Wireless subscribers in a number of instances in which VIA has alerted citizens in the path of impending natural disaster, assisted in the rescue of abducted children, and issued shelter-in-place information during public safety incident. Currently, there are 3 types of alerts sent during and through this system: alert issued by the President of the United States, alert involving imminent threat to safety of life, issued in 2 different categories: extreme threat and severe threat, and of course, Amber Alerts. With your permission, I would like to highlight 2 important aspects of it. First, emergency alerts are broadcast only to the cell towers in the coverage area that best the zone of an emergency. All VIA-capable phones that are in that coverage area of the cell site in the zone will receive VIA. The second important aspect of VIA is that it uses cellular technology and the wireless provider network to broadcast from cell towers to mobile devices in the area. Broadcasting the alert ensures an efficient and timely distribution of the alert compared to sending the alerts point to point, such as SMS. The wireless industry has worked for years to evolve the service to add new and greater capabilities. For example, full coordination with alert originators and our federal partners, the wireless industry is taking steps to offer capabilities that will include extending the alert message length from 90 to 360 characters for 4G LTE, improving geotargeting, including embedded references such as URL and phone number in messages, add a new alert category for public safety information messages, add Spanish language alerts, providing state local alert originators to the ability to conduct individual tests of the VIA system in their jurisdiction. The wireless industry is committed to enhancing VIA. To that end, the industry has taken the lead to study potential future enhancement to VIA, such as enhancement to end-to-end security, event codes, and device-assisted geotargeting. Chairman Blackburn and Ranking Member Doyle, thank you again for the opportunity to participate in today's hearing. Qualcomm looks forward to working with the wireless industry, the FCC, subcommittee, FEMA, and others in the public safety community to ensure that VIA continues to offer a unique and useful way to help protect the American public. Thank you.
We thank you, Mr. Gutman. McCabe, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairman Blackburn, Ranking Member Doyle, and members of the subcommittee. It is a privilege and honor to appear before you today to discuss the future of emergency alerts. During my testimony, I will wear 2 hats. Most importantly, I will represent AC&C, a small business technology company based in Baton Rouge, founded in 1991, that has developed a transformational software upgrade that I believe will drive the next iteration of wireless emergency alerting. In addition to representing AC&C, I also appear before you as an early advocate of the Wireless Emergency Alert Service. This issue is close to my heart. Today's hearing marks the 7th time that I will appear before Congress to discuss, at least in part, the issue of wireless emergency alerts. I first tackled this issue working on the WARN Act with Representative Shimkus and his team, thank you, sir, and I was part of the original committee that developed the framework for the WEA service. The emergency alerting platform has evolved in the years since the adoption of the WARN Act. It will evolve further with the recent actions of the FCC and with the industry's commitments in the recent CISRIC 5. And still more will be done under Chairman Pai's leadership when the FCC finalizes its further notice of proposed rulemaking that focuses on the upgrades involving device-assisted geotargeting. When implemented, that upgrade will dramatically transform the service. I am not alone in this thinking. Public safety representatives from across the country have identified the need to be able to more accurately geotarget alerts as the single most important upgrade that could happen to the WEA service. The Big City Emergency Managers Organization, which represents the 15 largest cities in the country, said it succinctly. Simply put, device-based geotargeting provides the lightest lift with the biggest return. AC&C, the company I represent, has designed and developed a device-based geotargeting solution entitled PG Alert. It leverages the current cell broadcast technology to push information to the general alert area, and the device takes over, using its location awareness to decide who the alert is relevant for, and how the alert is displayed on the device. The device can then compare its physical location to the alert area coordinates and play the message only when the person is within the alert area. For consumers, the upgrade will confirm why the person is receiving the alert by showing the device's position within the alert area on a well-defined map. For public safety alert originators, the most significant benefit will be the ability to contain alert messages to their jurisdiction, regardless of size. This will make the system effective for alerts of any size, buildings, streets, college campuses, and more, and will remove the over-alerting problem. For wireless carriers, AC&C's product is a low-cost software upgrade to WEA that not only will address most of public safety's calls for improvements to the service, but also will enable the industry to take advantage of the cell broadcast technology that exists in their networks. Additionally, the ability to precisely geo-target alerts will limit the network impact of the WEA service, particularly as carriers begin to include URLs and other embedded information in the WEA message. We at AC&C are not alone in thinking that this device-enhanced upgrade makes sense. In September, then Commissioner, now Chairman Pai, stated that citizens and public safety officials alike are opting out of the wireless system altogether. According to Chairman Pai, the City of Seattle says that it doesn't use WEA because of over-alerting. The City of Houston says that it has shied away from using WEA because of the high likelihood of over-alerting. And Harris County, Texas reports that it chose not to use WEA during 4 recent disasters solely due to significant concerns over the granularity of alerts. Chairman Pai said we need to do more than just codify the status quo, and he drove the FCC in the September order to move ahead with a device-based approach to geotargeting, and in the attached FNPRM to, quote, seek additional comment on ways we can implement our commitment to device-assisted geotargeting. In December, AT&T added support to the idea of device-assisted geotargeting, suggesting that a managed WEA application on the device could be the solution, as it could take the WEA message and then, quote, determine the handset's location using existing capabilities and APIs already available in the mobile device. Once the managed WEA app has identified the handset's location, it can determine whether the handset is in the alert area and display the message. If the handset is not in the area, it can ignore the message. In conclusion, we believe that the future of wireless emergency alerting is in the device, and that future is bright. We understand that the industry is working on a device-enhanced upgrade to the WEA service, and we look forward to continuing to work with the industry and the FCC to integrate the intelligence of the mobile device into the WEA service. It is our belief that these device-enhanced capabilities will provide significant consumer, public safety, and wireless industry benefits and help future-proof the WEA service. I again thank you for the invitation to provide my thoughts on the future of emergency alerts, and I welcome any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you all for your testimony. And now we are ready for the test portion of this hearing, right? We get to ask the questions, and you all get to give us the answers. Dr. Katibi, I'm coming to you first. Mr. Matheny pointed out the Gatlinburg fires and talked about that as one of his examples of the WEA alerts and some being impeded by network congestion. That's understandable. Catastrophe happens. Everybody wants as much information as they can get. People are trying to find family. Networks get clogged, and so you've got a strain on the network. I want you to just discuss this, the situation, the process, and then the upgrades that you see as necessary for continuity and for information flow during those times.
Thank you, Chairman Blackburn. Yes, the evolution, so as I mentioned in my testimony, we are working on evolving the WEA technology as is today. So we are adding more capabilities to it. For example, we're going from 90 to 360 characters, potentially allowing URLs and phone numbers so that people can get more information on it. And so the industry is in a continued mode of evolving the technology to serve public safety. But in addition to that, I would like to point out that the way I look at public safety is a big puzzle, and we are being part of it. So ATSC 3.0, other services would all complete that picture. So from the perspective of having public safety, I think it is all these pieces combined together would form that public safety tools that we need to provide to our customers. So we are evolving VIA as well as enabling other technologies to improve in addition to what we are doing. And as I said, for example, addition of 360 characters, the public safety community has come to us and say that is very important to them, and that would allow them to provide a lot more information to the public.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matheny, back in 2011, Gordon Smith told this subcommittee that the NAB, he was speaking on behalf of the NAB, that they did not seek any sort of mandate for mobile devices to incorporate a DTV. And as the industry transitions to the ATSC 3.0, is it still the case that you prefer market forces as opposed to mandates to look at how we holistically address this? And so go ahead with that.
Yes, absolutely, Chairman Blackburn, that is the case. We are not looking for a mandate of any sort. We believe that the benefits of next-gen TV will be attractive enough for themselves, and that's why if you look at the petition that we filed in concert with CTA and APTS, as well as AWARN Alliance, it is a voluntary move, and so we are not seeking a mandate.
Okay. I want to have each of you answer something. We've talked a lot about the potential in emergency alerting, and what we've not talked about is how to educate consumers. And I want to bring this up because as we're looking at broadband expansion, one of the things we hear about is adoption rates and the necessity to educate consumers on the need for these adoption rates. But as we look at the different abilities and capabilities in the formats for getting the word out in times of tragedy and catastrophe, I think that education for the consumers is going to be an important part of this. So very quickly, since we've only got a half minute left, just go right down the line. What are you all doing to educate people on alert systems and how to use them?
So I think local broadcasters are part of the communities that they serve, and through our free and local newscasts, we're in constant communication and educating folks about the possibilities.
Okay.
That's an excellent question, and we are working very closely with FEMA and DHS to make sure that the consumer is understand VIA and understand what to do as a result of that. So that's very important to us. Thank you.
And Chairman, I would agree with both of my colleagues' statements. I would also add that it's very important for us to actually educate public safety alert originators. What we found on the WIA side is that less than 60 out of tens of thousands of potential alert originators have used the service in the last 7 years. So I think primarily we need to do some educating on the public safety side. So in instances like Gatlinburg or the Orlando shootings or the floodings in Louisiana, that the local public safety entities actually use the service.
Did you say 60?
60 out of tens of thousands, perhaps as many as 40,000 entities in the United States could sign up to use WIA. And actually I think the number's 52, so I'm trying to be conservative and say 60. But I think only 52 have actually ever used it in 6 years.
If you will, check those numbers and then get that back to us.
Certainly, Chairman.
My time has concluded. Mr. Doyle, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Khatibi and Mr. Gutman-McCabe, in both of your testimony, you discussed the new advanced wireless alerting features that the FCC voted to allow last year. For instance, longer messages, geo-targeting, public safety alerts, and Spanish language alerts. What's the timeline for these features coming online, and how is the rollout going?
You want to start?
Ranking Member, Mr. Doyle, Congressman Doyle. So we are working very closely, FCC. As a matter of fact, we had a call with FCC just a couple of weeks ago, and we have been scheduling weekly, sometimes twice a week meetings, just to make sure that we comply with the timeline that FCC had put forth to us. So we are very motivated, and we are trying to get the standards, which is the document that describes the technology, finished soon within the next 6 to 9 months. And that has required a lot of resources, and industry has put a lot of resources because we believe this is very critical.
And Ranking Member, some of it's happening sequentially. So some of the capabilities will be unlocked when the industry goes to 360 characters. And so I think that's sort of the linchpin for some of the upgrades, not only that were in the order in September, but that are under consideration in the further notice that was released at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And tell me, as part of the FCC's further notice on this rulemaking, the Commission considered the addition of multimedia content, true multilingual support, including sign language. What are your thoughts on these proposed next steps?
And thank you. I may take that
You
first.
certainly.
I thought you may want me. So at this point, we allow to support multimedia. We enable URLs, which is basically pointer to website, and that could potentially take you to a place where you can get additional multimedia resources available to you. And with respect to other languages, we are also working on Spanish language alerts to be available to areas where they have large Spanish language population. Thank you.
And Ranking Member, the one thing that I would highlight from the FNPRM, and one of the main focuses was on geo-targeting, the ability to target alerts to very precise areas. That to me, public safety has been relentless in its pursuit of geo-targeting throughout the record, and so that perhaps is the most important in the FNPRM.
And this is for all the witnesses. You know, one issue I've been very passionate about over the years is working and supporting the autism community. Currently, a number of states support silver alerts for the elderly, those with dementia, and autistic individuals. And while these alerts are supported by the emergency alert system in several states, they're not supported by wireless alerts. I just want to ask the panel their thoughts on expanding the alerting system to include these alerts. I mean, I think we're all keenly aware of alerting fatigue, but when you have a friend or a family member or a loved one who's missing and could be a danger to themselves or to others, it seems critical that we use the tools available to us to address this issue. So I'm just curious about the panel's thoughts on this issue, silver alerts.
So I can speak to my time at WRAL-TV. I know that we published a number of silver alerts, either through actually publishing via EAS or addressing them in our on-air news coverage. And so we think that is part of the service to the community.
Thank you. And from the VIO perspective, we would like to consider that as something that we need to work going forward. We haven't done anything on it yet. We just recently added a number of new alerts, but we haven't done the silver alert. But with your permission, we would like to discuss that and see what we can do with it.
Great, I'd appreciate that.
Certainly, and it was not a type of alert that was established when the committee originally put together the framework for the three types of alerts.
Mr. Khattibi and Mr. Gutman-McCabe, wireless alerting has operated as an opt-in model for both carriers and consumers. What can you tell us about the effectiveness of this model, and how have carriers done in implementing this model, and how have consumers reacted? Is there sufficient consumer education for them so that they know this is an option that they can enable? And based on the numbers you were talking about, it doesn't seem like many people are enabling these features.
Well,
so how do we get more information on it?
Certainly, Ranking Member. On the carrier side, it's a voluntary service. I believe strongly in that approach to these types of requirements. Strongly enough that I wrote a law review article well after I left law school. Part of the way through the process, I wanted to shoot myself to having committed to that. But I believe strongly that you get the best and the brightest and the evolution of the system if you engage an industry like the wireless industry and others in a voluntary manner. So the carriers have done their part. They've jumped on board, and it is well disseminated. The carriers have done their part. On the consumer side, it's actually the opposite. It's opt-out. So the system is designed that you will get the alerts. And you can opt out of 2 of the 3. You cannot opt out of the presidential alert, but you can opt out of the Amber Alerts or the imminent threat. Oftentimes, we're quiet about that as an industry, as a society, because we don't want people to actually opt out of the service. So it's in the phones, the ability to opt out. We hope and pray that most people do not, because as much as it may bother you to be awakened at 2 in the morning, it's important if it's an Amber Alert to the parents and to society that we find that child. Some people complain, but we hope people don't opt out. The education, I believe, again, needs to be on the public safety side of the equation.
Gentleman's time has expired. Chairman Walden for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Again, thank you all for your testimony and for helping us out in these matters. Mr. Gutman-McCabe, given the difference in technical platforms, the inclination is to discuss alerting in terms of technology silos like EAS or WEA. What are we missing when we approach emergency alerting in this manner?
I think it was either Mr. Matheny or Dr. Katibi that said it earlier. I mean, I think we need sort of a patchwork quilt of approaches, to be quite honest. I think many of us in this room probably have children. I have 2 teenage daughters. They spend a great deal of time on social media. It troubles the heck out of me, but they do. I think that they will get a fair amount of their information from social media. But I think that there needs to be a primary alerting mechanism like EAS, like WEA. And I don't think we're missing anything at the moment. I do think we need to continue to evolve these services, and that is happening.
Okay, and you've, obviously, you're well informed on all these matters. The FCC has proposed a list of upgrades to WEA, including multimedia alerting and multilingual alerting. Obviously, these sound like good additions, but are there other considerations that we should have that should be included in WEA alerts?
Certainly, and I think, and I know the industry is considering it, but currently the way WEA is structured is it treats the device, in essence, as a dumb terminal. So if an alert is broadcast using the cell broadcast system, if a device is in the area, it plays it. It doesn't do anything to it. It doesn't interpret it. It doesn't decide if I should get it or shouldn't get it. It doesn't add any rich content to it. It doesn't push you to a broadband connection. All of that is under consideration. And I think once we unlock the intelligence in the device, we'll get an evolution of this service along the lines that Mr. Matheny's talking about with regard to ATSC 3.0. And so I do think we're going to see an evolution in the next several years as the intelligence in the handset comes in and we're able to take advantage of people's choices on their device, like Spanish as a primary language, like text-to-speech if you have a disability, or larger font, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Matheny, you mentioned in your testimony the ability of next-gen TVs to be woken up, to alert users even when they're powered off. I think the idea of devices in our homes that can be turned on remotely is probably a new one to a lot of consumers. Can you explain further how this functionality works?
Sure. So thank you, Chairman Walden, for that question. I think that what you can think of is that your television will be turned off and it will actually be in sort of a sleep mode. And at the same time, it can still listen for a discrete, I'm going to call it a beacon signal that will then trigger it to turn on. And that is something that is new to next-gen TV, and it is something that was very deliberately built in. And so what we think is that truly in a time of disaster or emergency, that ability to wake up a device and to provide that more info and the types of targeted information that really makes it actionable is vital and important and will save lives.
I guess we had that, I'm thinking back to my radio days, we had receivers that had a little device on them, a triggering switch, so when they got the multi-tone actuator, it triggered a relay and turned on the audio. I guess that's all you're talking about here.
Yes, we're talking about in a very specific situation of activating and turning on the device and to present emergency alerts.
Mm-hmm. And are TVs able to be turned on for other purposes?
No.
Okay. The cameras, we hear these things about cameras on televisions and all that. Can you speak to any of that since we're on this topic in general terms?
All I can speak to really is the capabilities of next generation television. The idea of having an internet connected or smart TV with other capabilities, that would fall outside of the realm of next gen TV. And those aren't really items that I should speak to here.
Got it. Okay, I think that's all I have, Madam Chair, so I'll turn it back to you and surrender the
Gentleman
balance of
yields
my time.
Back, Mr. Pallone, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Nearly 5 years ago, Hurricane Sandy ripped through the Northeast, devastating so many people across the region. Radio and TV broadcasting played a crucial role in saving lives by letting people know how to stay out of harm's way. And the role of broadcasting can't be overstated. Losing this signal is simply unacceptable. And that's why I released a discussion draft bill last year called the Viewer Protection Act, and this bill makes sure everyone can stay connected no matter what. I appreciate that some broadcasters are looking at new ways to deliver their content, but my goal, once again, will be to view this from the eye of a consumer. So I wanted to ask Mr. Matheny, I guess is how you pronounce it, can you commit that if the FCC adopts this new technology, no viewer in the country, especially the most vulnerable who can't afford new TV or new equipment, will lose their existing signal?
Thank you, Ranking Member Pallone. One of the key aspects of the rollout of NextGen TV is the idea of simulcasting. And so broadcasters will continue to broadcast in the current standard as Next Generation TV also rolls out, and we believe that no one will be disenfranchised.
All right, and then let me ask, I mentioned earlier, oftentimes the best way to protect people is to make sure that they know how to get out of the way before a disaster strikes. In addition to receiving emergency alerts from broadcasting stations, another powerful way to inform people are through alerts on their cell phones through the wireless emergency alert system. So I wanted to ask Mr. Khatibi a few questions. I know that you've done a lot of work on the systems that deliver these wireless emergency alerts. How would the proposed new broadcast standard fit into that existing system?
Thank you for that question. As we discussed earlier, I think this is the whole public safety is a patchwork of different elements. So wireless emergency alert is designed to provide the consumer immediate information about the alert that they're receiving about the incident. Beyond that, if there's a need to get additional information through broadcasting, TV, and so forth, that can complement VIA. So from our perspective, wireless emergency alert is the first line of defense, the information in a timely fashion. And then additional information, you can get it through the URL provided or through broadcasting.
Now, would consumers have to buy new TVs or other equipment to receive these new broadcast station alerts?
I would defer that to my colleague, Mr. Matheny.
Yeah, so to get an advanced emergency alert of the nature that we showed earlier, yes, that would be delivered via the Next Generation system. And so either a new TV set or a new tuner device would be required to receive the advanced alert.
Now, what new advances are on the horizon for the wireless emergency alert system that will benefit consumers? And will these new features require consumers to buy new phones?
So if I may, I will take that one. So as I mentioned, there are a number of activities that we are including, for example, going from 90 to 360 characters, including other languages such as Spanish, providing additional alert type messages. And a number of those do not require new handset, but some of them may require handset as they come into the market. But we are trying to create as many services as possible within the existing handsets that we have. Thank you.
And Ranking Member, if I may, AT&T mentioned in December that there are other capabilities in the device that they believe should, and ultimately I believe will, be connected to WIA that will drive some of the rich content and some of the benefits that Mr. Matheny is talking about that are just software upgrades. So they wouldn't require any additional equipment or change out in devices.
All right, thank you very much.
Gentleman yells back. Mr. Lance, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to the distinguished panel. And Dr. Khatibi, I want you to know I was honored to be at Qualcomm in Somerset County in the district I serve last week, and I understood some of what I was shown, but not everything. It was very advanced, and I must say your colleagues there are wonderful innovators and great scientists, and you should be very proud, as I'm sure your colleagues on the panel are proud of their distinguished employees. And to you, Dr. Khattibi, following up on Congressman Pallone's questioning, the hurricane in 2012 we call Sandy was devastating to our region of the country, as I'm sure everyone in the room knows. And afterwards, it became apparent, if it had not been apparent before the natural disaster, that there was great room for improvement. Do you think things would have been different given technology advancements and upgrades made by carriers to EA and to their networks since then? And I'd be very interested in your views on this.
Thank you for that question. That's actually a very interesting question. You know, for example, let's take a couple of examples, going from 90 to 360 characters. I think that provides the consumer more information.
Yes.
In a timely fashion, and potentially having different languages. So, you know, part of our enhancement, part of our evolution is to understand what are the consumer requirements, what are the public safety views on what improvements should be made. And as we go to 5G, et cetera, we continue to see and understand from our alert originated what are the features they would like to see. And that is part of our path going forward, to include all those features. So for the last few years, we have been very closely working with FEMA and DHS to understand what are the characteristics they would like to see included. And we have been enhancing our system continuously to allow those features to happen. So the answer to your question is yes, I believe all these enhancements that we are doing right now will surely would have benefited Sandy and other disasters that we have had. And we are hoping that in the path we have going forward, going to 5G, et cetera, we will continue to improving and addressing the needs.
And the sooner we get to 5G, the better, I presume.
Absolutely, yes. We are putting a lot of resources to make sure that 5G is deployed as soon as possible. And more importantly, that 5G has the capabilities for public safety that we require and we expect.
Thank you very much. And for the panel in general, is there a risk to innovation and to consumers if the FCC forces wireless providers to use a particular targeting technology? And perhaps we'll start on this side of the panel.
Certainly. I don't think the FCC should generally, I'm not in favor of them forcing anything. I mean, I do.
Nor am I.
Yeah, and I do believe that when you look at capabilities and you identify needs, the FCC's job is to frame those needs, whether it's public safety's needs or consumers' needs, and I think that should be the focus.
Thank you. Others would like to comment? Mr. Matheny?
I would just say that we're not in favor of mandates of that nature, and often technology outpaces those types of things, and so we would like to be able to use the best available as we continue to innovate broadcasting.
Thank you. I think it's the consensus of this subcommittee. It's certainly my belief that it's difficult for those in public policy to anticipate what's going to happen in technology. The reason that we are as advanced as we are over the last 20 years is based upon technology that tends to run ahead of statutory law. Finally, how do we balance the costs and burdens of the new capabilities that you've described with the fact that Congress made WEA a voluntary service? Yes, sir.
So, I mean, I think the word you used, balance, is the correct word. I do, again, believe this should be a voluntary service, and to your point earlier about if the FCC or Congress gets too granular in its requirements, often they miss the mark. Perfect example was we believe when we set the service that you could over alert, and that would be fine because wireless consumers are mobile. What we missed as an industry was that public safety wouldn't use it if you were over alerting, because it would go outside their constituency. So I do think there needs to be a balance.
Thank you. I'm over my time by 17 seconds. I yield back. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And we will try to make it up. Mr. McNerney, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the chairwoman. Mr. Matheny, I'm impressed by the advancements of the ATSC 3.0 standards. In fact, the examples that Mr. McCabe gave about the geo-targeting granularity, very impressive. But I'm also worried about affordability. In my district, over 21% of the households are living on an annual income of less than $25,000 a year. These individuals are not likely to be able to afford the new technology that's required. This means they won't have the same access to improved life-saving information in emergency circumstances. Mr. Matheny, how can we ensure that adopting the new standard will not further marginalize those who can't afford these services?
So, thank you, Congressman. The key tenet of the transition plan is the idea of a simulcast, and so broadcasters will continue to broadcast in the current generation of standard, while also beginning to broadcast in the next generation standard. And so that type of approach will keep everyone able to receive free local broadcasting with the emergency alerts and having access to information.
Well, the new K4 TV, for example, is going to cost a couple of $1,000s at least initially. I mean, I don't see how people can afford that. And sounds like you're counting on that as a part of your system, as a part of the safety system.
So I think what we're trying to do in our approach is to transition to a new technology that is going to have greater capabilities while also making sure that no one is left behind and everyone has access to our broadcasts.
It's good to know. Dr. Katibi, how much do you anticipate the new chip will cost to manufacture, the new standard chip will cost to manufacture?
I'm sorry, Congressman, I actually don't have, I mean, I'm a technologist, so I don't have any cost numbers available to me. So I cannot answer that question. I don't have that number.
Well, do you anticipate the device potentially requiring other alterations in these devices, and these other components are going to have to be altered as well?
Absolutely. So part of the providing this features of public safety is part of our schedule of features that's coming up. So our chips are getting more and more sophisticated as we go along. So adding those features, even all the way to 5G, it's going to be very small incremental. It's not that we are designing a new chip just to support public safety. We are designing system, and that public safety will make sure that is part of that evolution.
Okay, to change the subject a little bit, Dr. Katibi, the emergency alert system has been hacked into in the past, and I understand that the new standard could enable information to be pushed into a much wider range of connected devices. I'm concerned that this has potential for increased cybersecurity risk. Does the new standard address potential cybersecurity concerns?
Very good question, Congressman. So I was chairing a CISTRIC 5 group on cybersecurity, and as part of that, we identified potential cybersecurity issues, and industry as a whole, we are making sure those cybersecurity issues are addressed. So we are working diligently to ensure that cybersecurity is addressed as we go forward.
Very good. Mr. Matheny, how are broadcasters planning to educate consumers about the new standard?
So the first step that we need to do is to get FCC approval to use the new standard. And so Chairman Pai has established a target date of the end of the year to actually have that rulemaking out. We believe that once that is done, stations will begin to go on the air and they will begin to use their airwaves to talk about what they're doing and the benefits of NextGen TV.
It sounds like it's a voluntary program.
It is a voluntary program, yes.
Well, okay. Dr. Katibi, in your written testimony, you mentioned that the wireless industry is taking steps to improve geographical targeting. Can you explain how these improvements compare to the geographical targeting of the 3.0 standard?
Actually, it's more on the wireless emergency alert that what we are trying to do is we started at the county level, and now we are going to a smaller, like a health sector level. So we have already improving to a much more granular level at the existing deployment of wireless emergency alert. Yeah.
I mean, this is pretty exciting. I just want to make sure it's
Yes.
affordable for my constituents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Okay, now we've got Mr. Long, recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. On May the 22nd of 2011, it was my oldest daughter's birthday, and we're at a birthday party. Next Monday will be another birthday for her on May 22nd. And at that birthday party, alarms went off in Springfield, Missouri, and there was word that there was a tornado right at the edge of town. And the reason they thought there was a tornado at the edge of town, because there had been one 70 miles away. And we were getting debris from that tornado 70 miles away in Springfield. It hit Joplin, Missouri on May 22nd of 2011. That was my indoctrination into being a congressman. I'd been here 5 months at the time and went down there as soon as it was daylight the next day and stayed on the ground 8 days, missed a whole week of votes here in Washington. It was the single deadliest tornado in U.S. history since modern record keeping began in 1950. Over 160 people lost their lives. If I remember right, there were 8,000 homes destroyed, 500 businesses destroyed. And unfortunately, this is not an unheard of story in our part of the country, in Tornado Alley. I retweeted a report of tornadoes in Oklahoma last night. After event assessments by FEMA determined that improvements were needed to better communicate the risk of impending storms to the public. Mr. Matheny, what kind of increased emergency alerting capabilities could ATSC 3.0 provide if a similar catastrophe, and let's hope it doesn't, strikes such as the Joplin tornado?
Thank you, Congressman Long. First, if I could, my son shares a birthday with your daughter.
Oh, very good.
And if I reflect back on my childhood, my father was a founding member of the rescue squad of the small town that I grew up in, Zebulon, North Carolina, and I remember vividly the loss of life suffered by a tornado that hit Zebulon when he was in that role. As it relates to what next-gen alerting can do, it really does come back to the demonstration that we showed earlier, the idea that we can wake up a device that is sleeping. We can provide more information. In the case of a tornado, it might be a map of exactly where the warning is taking place. We can target the alerts, very much like the technology that was being discussed from AC&C. We can use that same sort of technology so that we're not alerting an entire television market, but we are alerting the people that are specifically impacted. And we can deliver them more actionable information that really lets them know what's happening and what they need to do. And then finally, we can extend that beyond just the home television set to a variety of different devices, from the automobile to computers to tablets, et cetera, anything that might have a next-gen TV tuner in it.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Hatabi, what kind of emergency, let me start over. What wireless emergency alerts mean for my constituents, and could you discuss what changes have been made to the wireless emergency alerts since then to provide better information to alert recipients?
And thank you, Congressman. I think the most important thing I want to mention is that this is the most ubiquitous device that we have. We all have a cell phone, at least one, sometimes two, and having the ability to receive an imminent threat information on your cell phone is critical, to the point that we want to make sure that that information is available to you in a timely fashion, and that saves a lot of lives. But beyond that, the second part of your question, we are continuously to enhance it, adding more characters so that you can have a lot more information. It used to be that we only had 90 characters. Now we have 360 characters. We're potentially going to allow URLs to be there so they can surf with more, get more information, additional languages, getting a little bit better constraints. So we are enhancing as we get more demands, as we understand the public safety requirements more. We are continuously to improve the technology to make it more useful for the consumer.
All righty, thank you. And Madam Chairwoman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Ms. Eshoo for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. First, I just want to make a couple of comments before I get to our witnesses with my questions. I think that they are both topics that were raised by other members, but I'd like to add my voice to it as well. And that is that for our subcommittee, this is a wonderful hearing. Our subcommittee certainly the future of emergency alerting is very important in our country for so many reasons. But this is the committee that has oversight responsibility of the FCC. The FCC has not been here since last July. That's a long time ago. And there is a lot happening at the FCC. Tomorrow they will take up and begin the effort to unravel net neutrality. I believe that this subcommittee, and under your leadership, Madam Chairwoman, that we have a hearing, an oversight hearing with the FCC. Both my colleagues, Congresswoman Matsui and our ranking member, Mr. Doyle, and myself have sent a letter to the chairman of the full committee and yourself to request that the subcommittee hold a hearing to examine the proposed acquisition of Tribune Media by Sinclair Broadcasting. This is a $3.9 billion deal that would create the single largest television broadcast company in the country. And I think that, again, this important subcommittee should be able to review and be able to ask questions. And so I want to underscore the importance of having that hearing as well. So let me get to my questions. Thank you to the witnesses, not only for your testimony, but for the work that you've done in this field. In 2015, hackers were able to successfully disable French broadcast television station. The new broadcast standard could enable hackers to do much more than simply take a station off the air, including giving them a pathway into consumers' homes. So my question is, how prepared are all of the members of the industry, not just large station groups, to defend against potential cybersecurity threats that the next generation standard may bring?
Thank you, Congresswoman Eshoo. Broadcasters take very seriously the cybersecurity issues. There's any number.
Well, everyone does. And
yes.
I've got a minute 50, so I want to get to all three and ask another question. So if you could just be brief, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so we have lots of educational programs that are taking place and operate hardened physical facilities already, and so we are take it very seriously and are working hard to ensure that even with the next-gen standard, we maintain top cybersecurity.
I would also agree on wireless emergency alert. Cybersecurity is extremely important, and we have already started activities to ensure that it's a safe and a secure process. Thank you.
I'd echo Dr. Katibi on the wireless side, Congresswoman.
I've heard some allege that the FCC's net neutrality protections could cause emergency alerts to get stuck behind some other traffic on the internet during an emergency. I would assume that the exception for specialized services would make sure that that doesn't happen. So I'd like to go to Mr. Gutman-McCabe. Have you ever heard of emergency alerts or any other types of emergency communications being hampered by the net neutrality protections?
I have not. I mean, I've studied emergency alerts for a long time and net neutrality for a long time, and I haven't actually really focused on the intersection of the two, to be quite honest.
But you know of none?
Correct.
That's what you're saying. Broadcasters are going to have the ability, I want to squeeze this in, to use device GPS information to geo-target emergency alerts. This raises, I think, important privacy questions that are new to the industry. What other types of information will broadcasters be capable of collecting from consumers? And what safeguards will broadcasters put into place to protect information that is collected by consumers?
So we believe that the idea of using location can really help with alert fatigue and serves a real value to providing meaningful.
This is on the privacy side, is what
Yes,
I'm asking.
Yeah, and so from a privacy perspective, broadcasters would have no greater access to information than they already have through their websites or other online offerings. And so there's already well-documented security measures in place.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Let's see. Mr. Collins, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank our witnesses. For the last couple of years, pirate radio has been top of mind when it comes to me, and we all know that our former chairman, Mr. Wheeler, showed no inclination whatsoever to deal with the issue. The good news is Ajit Pai does recognize the impact pirate radio can have, and I think today's hearing really highlights a major issue on the emergency alert system and the potential interference. And so I maybe would want some comments from you as we move forward and try to get these pirate radio stations off the air. But we've had certainly reports, there's one and a lot of this is coming out of New York City, that in northern New Jersey there was trouble with a station on the EIS because of pirate radio interference coming in the New York City area. And so, the other issue we've noted is if somebody's listening to pirate radio, they don't broadcast EAS alerts. So somebody in that instance wouldn't get them to begin with. So as we move forward, and I know Ajit Pai is going to move forward to try to shut these pirate radio stations down, is kind of a new sheriff in town in that regard. But if you could weigh in, and maybe I'll start with Dr. Khartibi on industry's concern with something like pirate radio interference with public safety and EAS alerts.
Thank you, Congressman. I think the important part of wireless emergency alert is that it's a very secure system that is originated from authorities to wireless devices that are functioning on spectrum that are assigned to wireless carriers. So from that perspective, we can decouple somewhat from pirate radios because all the information is sent through a channel that is licensed by FCC to the carriers. And the information is coming from an authority that we understand alert originator. So from that perspective, the good news is that VIA is immune from potentially pirate radios. Thank you.
Now, wouldn't there be, but they're not using licensed spectrum. They're stealing spectrum.
Yes, but they are operating as a different spectrum that your device is functioning. I mean, obviously they can jam and so forth, which they can provide all, but the spectrum that they're using for FM, AM, and so forth, they are not the same spectrum that we're using for wireless devices.
Yeah, Mr. Gutman-McCabe, any comments?
Congressman, just at the macro level, which is, I think collectively we as a society have to work to ensure that there's not misinformation when it comes to the delivery of emergency alerts. I know on the FEMA side, they work hard with wireless carriers to confirm that those originating alerts are actually qualified and authorized to do so. So I think the pirate radio example would fall into a category of potential misinformation alert, and we've got to be aware and try to reduce or eliminate them.
Yeah, Mr. Matheny.
So we are very concerned about pirate radio, and we think that the examples that you cited are ones that are of vital concern, especially when you consider the daisy chain effect of the EAS system and the idea that a pirate radio station might be operating on a frequency that not only interferes with a station, but it could be an originating station that then prevents downstream stations from receiving that alert. So we absolutely share that concern. I think I would add to that more and more cell phones have FM chips activated in them. And so the idea that you're able to listen to FM radio on your cell phone, and millions upon millions of people are doing that today already, it becomes a concern for that type of information getting to cell phones as well.
I want to thank all the witnesses, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman for yielding back. Now yield 5 minutes to our distinguished colleague from California, Ms. Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the subcommittee for holding this hearing and the witnesses for sharing their insight. Over the years, my district in California has experienced a number of weather-related disasters, including flooding, earthquakes, and wildfires. As recently as last month, an Amber Alert for a missing 1-year-old girl was issued throughout the region, including Orange County. In each instance, the distribution and accuracy of emergency alerts are critical to ensuring the safety of all individuals. As technology evolves, so will the way we communicate emergency information. As a new member of the committee, I look forward to learning more about your issues and how we can work together to build upon the existing emergency alert system. It's safe to say that Californians are pretty much waiting for the next big earthquake to hit, particularly in my district, which sits near a major fault line. Schools hold earthquake drills, companies host earthquake safety sessions, and my office has hosted earthquake preparedness seminars for my constituents. Along those lines, I understand, Dr. Khatibi, that you're doing some work on earthquake detection. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're working on as it relates to the earthquake early warning system?
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you for asking that question, because I live in San Diego, and I'm very close to the water, so I want to make sure that we have a system in California to detect and warn people on earthquakes. So we are working very closely with California OES operation and system, and as well as USGS and earthquake authorities to design a system that we can alert the consumer on earthquake as soon as we detect it. And without to a lot of details, there is a way we can detect the earthquake before you can actually get the shaking. So we can give advance warning to the folks who are in the imminent danger to take action before the actual shaking gets to them. So as I said, this is a very near and dear to my heart, and we are working very closely, the industry as a whole, to implement a system to detect and alert consumers, very similar to VIA, but a lot more efficient and a lot on earthquake systems.
Thank you. Mr. Matheny, can you talk a little bit about how next-gen broadcast alerts can provide more information to recipients?
Yes, thank you, Congresswoman. So we think that with the demonstration that we showed earlier and the idea that we can not just present scrolling text or basic information, we're able to really provide actionable information, and that could come in the form of maps. It could come in the form of evacuation routes. It could come in the form of video on demand even. So if you're talking about a complex issue, the ability to have that video downloaded in the background and to play for the user, and you combine that with the targeting of information such that if you're in one part of the broadcast area and I'm in another, we may get different advice based on our exact situation. So there are a lot of capabilities that next-gen alerting will offer, and in particular, I put that in the context of, again, being able to wake up a device. So to get someone's attention, whether or not their device is turned on or not.
Thank you. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank the gentlewoman for yielding back. Now recognize Mr. Costello for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Matheny, you focused today on the advanced alerting capabilities of next-gen TV broadcast and the standard for it. If I understand correctly, broadcasters have to first ask the FCC for permission to innovate on their standard and achieve any of these benefits. Where is that issue at the FCC, and who else is supporting the next generation TV standard? And then finally, can Can you clarify whether broadcasters are asking for any additional spectrum, funds, mandates, or relief from any mandates?
Thank you, Congressman. Right now, there is we, along with the Consumer Technology Association, the Association for Public Television Stations, as well as the AWARN Alliance, filed a petition. There is a notice of proposed rulemaking out now. Chairman Pai has targeted the end of the year for having rules to enable broadcasters to begin to use the next generation standards. So we are hopeful that timeline can hold, and going into next year, we'll be able to have stations doing deployments. As it relates to any further asks, our ask is one that is voluntary and does not require any mandates or additional spectrum or new funds. So we're taking a voluntary approach to this, and again hope that deployment can begin next year.
Mr. Khattibi, in your testimony, you touched on the recommendations from the CSRIC working group on the WEA security in terms of end-to-end security. Can you further describe current vulnerabilities and recommendations to mitigate them or the risk of malicious code within the supply chain? Ancillary questions: what about outside actors originating false WEA alerts or blocking real WEA alerts? And would developing more precise jurisdictional alerts help contain those cybersecurity concerns, or might they, by contrast, make it even a worse situation or accelerate it from spreading to neighboring jurisdictions?
Thank you, Congressman. It's a very good question. So during the CISRIC 5 discussion that we had on cybersecurity, we looked at potential security issues end-to-end, from alert originators all the way to the carriers, all the way to the users. And you provided a couple of excellent examples of where security issues could come up. What we are doing at the industry, we are working very closely with FEMA and DHS to address those security issues and make sure that we have a very secure end-to-end system. And as you mentioned, one of the points that we are trying to make sure is addressed is that the alert originators are authorized alert originators, because we have seen through social media and so forth, people can take advantage of sending some false alerts to cause actually more damage.
Right.
So we are addressing that to make sure that the alert originator for WEA is a secured alert originators.
Right. Real quick follow-up on that in terms of this. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, Congressman, the latter part of your question involved the geographic targeting or more granular alerts. And as I said earlier, we're finding that public safety is not using the capability because they can't constrain or confine the alert to their jurisdiction.
Right.
And we've had many cities, and we've had Seattle said they have 18 microclimates, so they can't send alerts, so they don't use it. Harris County, Texas has said we haven't used it because even though we've had 5 declarations of emergency, presidential declarations of emergency, because we can't confine it. So I do think you have to look at that issue with a balance and say the greater the granularity, the more likely it actually gets used. That may open the door for some bad actors, but FEMA, I think, has a very robust process for making sure that doesn't occur.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I thank the gentleman for yielding back. And now, I'm going to yield my time for a few questions. Dr. Khattibi, one of the things you mentioned in your testimony is enhancing end-to-end security. Could you describe that work and what it's aimed to address?
Yes, thank you for the question. So part of the CISRIC 5 work that we did, we looked at all the end-to-end potential security issues that could be introduced. We haven't seen any of those, but we went and said, okay, what if? And how can we mitigate those security issues? So we created a report that we said, what are the potential issues and how can it be mitigated? And industry now taking a lead to make sure those security issues would not happen. So we are doing the best we can. And you know, cybersecurity can never be 100%, but we are doing all we can to make sure that wireless emergency alert is from a very secured authority and gets to the consumer in a secure way. So that's we have a huge report on that, and as I said, the industry is continuing to work on that.
Okay, thank you. I also noticed that in your testimony that the FCC's CSRIC working group did reports on social media and complementary alerting methods. Could you discuss concerns regarding trustworthiness and security with regard to social media as an alerting tool?
Yes, I think you pointed exactly the issue with social media. So social media can be helpful, and at the same time, it can be used, misused. So we had a very interesting discussion during District 5 on how potentially even public safety can take advantage of information that's going on. For example, in the San Bernardino shooting, there was a lot of information going on social media that the public safety could use. At the same time, bad people can take advantage of the social media and misspread bad information and cause even more damage. So we need to understand how to help take advantage of social media, but not to the point that actually social media is not an authority like wireless emergency alert. So that's the balance that we are trying to find.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gutman-McCabe, anything to add to that?
Yes, Congressman. I heard a great quote with regard to the intersection of social media and emergency alerting, and Dr. Khatibi, I think, really hit at it. But the quote is, with the use of social media when it comes to an emergency situation, there's a potential for viral misinformation. And I think that's a threshold concern that I and others who have worked on this issue have. Dr. Khatibi, I think, hit on it well, and he said it can provide an additional alternative or an add-on benefit. But the primary has to be, I believe, the EAS system that Mr. Matheny and NAB's members provide, as well as the wireless emergency alert that many of us have worked on. I think that has to be the primary because it's authorized, it's confirmed, FEMA ensures that the person who originates the alert is actually allowed to. And I think that's a process that ensures that we get correct information, not viral misinformation.
Sure, Mr. Matheny?
Yeah, so I would say that trust is the key issue, and that is something that, as the study that was released this morning shows that broadcasters remain the most trusted source for information by a 4x margin. And so I think turning to broadcasters to provide that trusted information about what's taking place is key, and broadcasters are providing that not just over the air, they're free over-the-air signals, but also on numerous platforms, including social media.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Khatibi, continuing with you then, the advancements in wireless emergency alerting sound promising, but we've also heard today the limitations of wireless communication, like network congestion in times of emergency. How is the wireless industry working to overcome these limitations?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we are doing right now is, as we are evolving to 5G, we are trying to find out what are the potential issues that we can improve the system to make sure that 5G does not inherit all the issues that we had in 4G. So we are continuously thinking about what are the paths we can get so that wireless emergency alert, which can save money, save people, and potentially disaster areas, that has no issues with congestion. So that's just an activity that's going on.
Yeah, and I would just add, Congressman, the alert itself goes over a different element of the wireless network, not the same network that you and I would use either for broadband access or for texting or for voice. It's a cell broadcast. So it is a different component of the network that doesn't have the issues of congestion. Those issues may happen after an event, but not with regard to the WEA service.
Okay, I thank you, and my time has expired. I now yield 5 minutes to Mr. Mr. Guthrie from Kentucky.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, for yielding. Appreciate everybody being here. And there's a healthcare subcommittee for the same committee going on, so I've been back and forth. And so I think we're talking about this. But Dr. Katibi, could you walk us through how a WEA alert is broadcast by a service provider?
Yes, I would be happy to do so. So as my colleague, Mr. Gutman-McCabe mentioned, we have a separate channel that we can broadcast the information. And the best part about it is that when it's broadcast to a particular cell site, all the devices, regardless of where their home location is, would get that. So for example, I just arrived from San Diego last night. If there is a chemical spill here, all our devices would get that alert, including mine. So there is no subscription needed. It's just broadcast to the specific cell sites that would have that information, and all the devices would receive it.
Okay, and to Dr. Katabi, again, or Mr. Gutman-McCabe, one of the arguments for ATSC 3.0 is that if the technology is incorporated into mobile devices, they could be awakened in times of emergency. And I think earlier you might have mentioned something about this too when I was in earlier, awakened so that alerts could be delivered. Do you see this as currently feasible, or are there any risks that this capability could drain device battery power during a time when a commercial power outage is already compromising strength?
Congressman, it certainly is something that we talked about when we originally put the committee together, was the idea of awakening a device, and I think we called it a zombie device. You know, the reality is the overwhelming majority of Americans, for better or for worse, don't turn off their devices. And so we did study it at the time somewhat robustly, as we also studied incorporating a broadcast chip and a satellite chip and an FM chip. And we looked at those different capabilities and settled on the cell broadcast service as the right capability to deliver alerts on the mobile wireless platform.
Okay, and then my final question for you again, Mr. Gutman-McCabe, if anybody wants to answer this, is what kind of impact will the advances you've discussed have on consumer devices? Do you anticipate it will increase the size or cost of a handset?
Congressman, no. What we are looking at is simply a software upgrade. AT&T said in December that it could use existing APIs and capabilities in the device. So what we're trying to do is integrate software that will allow the intelligence in the handset to become part of WEA, and to address actually a number of the significant upgrades that Mr. Thaney has discussed, including the ability to geo-target, including the ability to deliver rich content, including the ability to personalize the alert. Sort of all of these things are available and are part of the capabilities of the device, to be quite honest. Linking that to WEA is what is under consideration at the FNPRM, at the FCC, and we think that's the next iteration and the next stage.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your answers, and I yield back the balance of my time.
I thank the gentleman for yielding back. Now yield to Mr. Olson from Texas for 5 minutes.
I thank the chair and welcome to our witnesses. Mr. Gutman-McCabe, you and I are right there. You mentioned Harris County. Harris County is about 20% of my district, Texas 22. It is on track. It's exploding with growth. We think we'll have 1 million people by 2020. That's 250,000 over a normal congressional district. It's the most ethnically diverse district in America. It's very geographically diverse. We have 20-story buildings, suburbs, cotton farms. Our big emergencies are typically weather. We have a saying in Texas, if you don't like the weather, just wait 15 minutes, it'll change. And that change may be a hurricane, or tornado, a drought, a flood, hail, no snow, or earthquakes. But our Office of Emergency Management back there has told me and the FCC that geo-targeting of alerts is the most important thing to the future of wireless emergency alerts. Since geo-targeting can summon a car or order pizza like my son does through my phone or my other phone, and that can arrive at my door, it seems like my public safety people back home in Harris County should be able to use the location capabilities in our devices to target alerts, mostly in smaller areas. And since these capabilities are already in most devices, like both of these, will that be allowed, will that be in order, will that capability be in order with our wireless communication alert service? What are the challenges going forward? When's it going to happen? What are the challenges? And feel free to talk. Anybody else, not just Mr. Gutman-McCabe.
First of all, Francisco Sanchez is your person who works on those issues in Harris County, and he's fantastic. He's actually worked with Dr. Katibi on the CISRIC working groups, and he's a great public servant. I would say, as I've said throughout the hearing, I think getting that ability to geo-target will unleash a world of benefits to this service. And I do believe the capabilities are there, and I do know that Dr. Katibi and the wireless industry are working on it. The issue is going to be obviously timing. It was a big deal that AT&T, stepped out and said these capabilities exist in the device, that they're there, and that the industry can take advantage of those capabilities to manufacture this upgrade and this capability. Obviously, the issue is going to be when, but I know the industry is working on it.
Dr. Khatib, you've been drawn in this conversation. You care to add something to it?
First, I would like to also echo the fact that I had a pleasure to work with Mr. Sanchez as part of CISRIC 5. We were the co-leads on it, and it was a really pleasure working with him. And I would like to also, and as Mr. Governor McCabe mentioned, that industry is working on providing better location services. We went from a county level to cell site level, and we have thoughts about, for example, device space on how to potentially improve it even further. So this is definitely, industry is taking a lead on it, and we are working very closely with the FEMA and DHS to improve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Want to add anything there, Mr. Metheny, or are you fine?
I would just say that the same benefits of geolocation apply to next generation television, and the idea that we can provide targeted alerts that will help with alert fatigue, but also will provide more actionable information to the affected individuals.
Thank you, gentlemen. One message from Mr. Sanchez. He wants to remind all of you that the Houston Astros have the best record pro baseball today. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman for yielding back. Mr. Villarakas from Florida, recognized now for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it very much. As a district on the Gulf Coast, a significant portion of my constituents live or near the water. They live near the water or on the water, and unfortunately, they experience major flooding. Currently, evacuation routes are limited to only a few east-west roads and bridges. Unfortunately, at about a 40 mile per hour wind, the bridges close to the public, which further restricts emergency routes. So it's a big problem in our area. Due to this, I'm very interested in the 2016 FCC's examination of new event codes for storm surge warnings and extreme wind warnings. Dr. Katibi, what progress has industry made to support these codes?
Thank you, Congressman, for that question. We have done a lot of progress on that. As a matter of fact, right now we are almost completing the standards. When I say standards, is my geek word for we have done the description so that all manufacturers start implementing it. So we have completed the standards, and that means that now we can make sure that all devices and all handsets will have that capability shortly, and the network as well. So we are very much on our way to include those the event codes in our devices and in our networks.
Thank you very much. In addition to flooding, just last week my district experienced wildfires. Throughout the ordeal, Pasco County government shared information on social media about road closures, smoke conditions, and also live stream press conference online. Our firefighters did an outstanding job, as they always do, to put out these fires. So it saved many lives. We're so grateful to them. Again, Dr. Katibi, could you describe the integration or coordination of wireless emergency alert system messages and the ever-changing information on the ground being shared by the local governments on in the online community?
That's another excellent question. So, VIA is designed so that we can potentially have input from both local, state, and federal input. We received some statistic that there has been 850 alert originators so far, and over 30,000 alerts sent. So we allow definitely local authorities, and this keyword is authorities, local authorities definitely have access to provide timely information to consumers in scenarios you described.
Okay. One last question. Due to my area's limited evacuation routes, and we're working on that, fixing that, but I'm intrigued by the development of more accurate geo-targeting of emergency areas. By mitigating alert spillover outside the target zone, we can prevent unnecessary road congestion. So the question is for Mr. Gutman-McCabe. You discussed the ability to geofence any shaped emergency zone and better target populations. Is it feasible in the near future to send two separate messages to two distinct groups within a specific tower coverage area? How granular can we go?
Certainly, Congressman. So the answer is yes. It will be as this ability to geo-target and get more granular is put into the device. Think of it as two people on the same street can order Uber and get two different Ubers to the same area. Or I can order an Uber in my house and walk across the street and order a second one and get both of them. It's the only limitation is the ability of the device to identify its location, and the devices are getting more and more accurate. So the public safety in the FCC's proceeding has identified exactly that type of scenario that you just highlighted, which is we want the west side of this street to move west, and we want the east side of this street to move east. And that's the way we avoid congestion. And so evacuation routes or, splitting an order, shelter in place to this block, evacuate, to the next block. And you can imagine that type of situation applying itself in all sorts of emergency scenarios. Shootings, things like that. That horrific shooting in Orlando is a perfect example. Public safety would like to be able to target an alert right to that specific nightclub and say to that nightclub, there's a shooter in the building, we're coming in, duck. And then outside that building, it would be, do not go near the building. And so in that situation, you would have a donut hole and a donut sort of message. But that capability is on the horizon. I know the industry is working on it, and we believe it'll, and I would say we believe, but more importantly, public safety believes it will be transformational.
Very good, exciting stuff. Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The time has expired, and now seeing there are no further members wishing to ask questions for the panel, I thank all of our witnesses for being here today. Pursuant to committee rules, I remind members that they have 10 business days to submit additional questions for the record, and I ask that witnesses submit their responses within 10 business days upon receipt of these questions. Seeing no further business before the subcommittee today, without objection, the subcommittee is adjourned.
Good job.
Yeah.